Hey Fae folk, welcome back. So for today's video, I want to discuss why I personally lately am just like really having a hard time caring about Barbie. And I know like as a adult doll collector community, we do tend to clown on Barbie a lot, especially when it comes to like the Playline releases, just because she's certainly not releasing things in the same capacity that she used to, saying that the quality has gone downhill and that the prices have gone up. Those are very common complaints, pretty universal complaints, and like also just objectively true. And while I will be touching on some of those things, this video isn't about why Barbie has gone downhill. This video is about why I personally am having a hard time connecting to her. So, like, those things don't help. But this is less about like Barbie's decline in general and more just about my personal relationship with like the dolls and the brand and everything, because I really like thought that I was going to become like a Barbie person. Like I thought I was going to be in my Barbie era when like around the time that we got the first Barbie deluxe style dolls, I was like, okay, this is a shift in the right direction in my opinion. This is something that I feel excited about. This is like maybe the return to the Barbie of old to a certain extent. I don't know. I really thought that like we were going to enter a new era and I was going to be super into Barbie, and it just didn't happen. And now the more I think about it, I'm like, I think Barbie is like out of the brands that I will still collect and still pay attention to, probably one of my least favorites, which sounds so mean, but it just is how it is. And I wanted to talk about why that is in today's video. So these are obviously just going to be my opinions. If you disagree with everything I say, that's fine. Like you're obviously allowed to love Barbie and everything that she does, even if I don't, but just please be like kind about that if you want to express it in the comments down below. And if this is fun for you, if you could like, subscribe, hype, all of that jazz, y'all know the drill. It's very helpful to me. But the first thing that I think that we have to do is look at my Barbie collection, because it is pretty bold of me to have a not insubstantial Barbie collection and yet still be saying that I am not super duper into Barbie. So let's go ahead and catalog that real quick so that we can discuss with more context. So to take a little look-see at my Barbie collection, this whole shelf, and then if we move on up, this whole shelf all contain Dolls of the World Barbies, most of the time Dolls of the World Princess Edition dolls. So these are all very like culturally thematic, like they're all supposed to be representative of different cultures. Then we move down. I do apologize in advance for the screaming you're going to be hearing from my cat. But we have fairies, Faery. These two are like, I would say pretty fantastically themed. Like they're from the Enchanted Forest wedding gift set. Enchanted Forest, that's pretty mystical, I guess, in my opinion. Then we have this girly, a Venetian masquerade doll. Very like, again, to me, that's quite themed. She's very opulent. These two here are from the Tribute to Fashion line. I forgot for a second. I could not recall, but these two are both from the Tribute to Fashion line. This is the first one and this is the second. So they are both, not entirely modern takes, but like slightly modernized takes on different eras in fashion history. This girly pop is the Style by Design 2 Barbie. She is representative of Filipino culture. Moving on down, we have these two dolls from the Legends of Ireland. I feel like that title is pretty self-explanatory. I've got 3 mermaid Barbies. Continuing downward, we have 3 dolls from the Great Eras collection. Oh my goodness, Reese. She said, pay attention to me. Pete, my vacuum over there. But anyway, Great Eras collection. So again, all like historically thematic. This one, I literally always forget whether she's like a princess or a goddess, but she's like either the princess or the goddess or something of the sun. So again, to me, pretty thematic. You're starting, ironically, to see a theme here. Then we have my Barbie movie dolls. Not like from my childhood as in they're the same dolls, but these are dolls that I had when I was a kid that I felt very attached to and I rebought as an adult. So 2 from Princess and the Pauper. And then we have the Swan Lake Barbie. This is Arwen from Lord of the Rings. She was a gift from Enzo from the junk drawer. Shout out. Funnily enough with her, I'm actually not like into the Lord of the Rings, but I am into this doll. I think she's very cutie patootie and definitely having that like fantastical element. Then we have the Mojo Dojo Casa House Ken, who has shared custody with my husband. When we went to see the Barbie movie, we both really liked it. And so he wanted the doll. And so he's sort of like both of ours. And then last little bits here, we have the Goddess of the Arctic Barbie, pretty recent edition Goddess of the Arctic.
And this is definitely the shelf that I'd say is the most like day to day Barbies. We have two of the first wave of deluxe style dolls that I referenced. And then we have this Kitty Fun Barbie that was also a doll that I had when I was a kid that I rebought as an adult because you can fill this cat up with water and make her pee. And I think it's really, really funny. This cat was just a cat. Like I don't know if it originally came with a doll, but I just bought this one on eBay by itself. So that doesn't really count. But that's my entire Barbie collection. So let's discuss it.
So, as you might have gathered, I have what I feel like are very few everyday Barbies, right? Like, my collection of Barbie is mostly like historical or culturally representative or some sort of fantasy, whether that's the fairies or the mermaids, or even just like I think the movies sort of fall into that for me, like Erica and Annalise from Princess and the Pauper and then Swan Lake. Like, those dolls feel sort of more fantasy to me just because they're from this like fantastical world of the movies, if that makes sense. Really, the only like everyday Barbies that I have in my display are the two Barbie Deluxe style dolls and then that cat theme doll. And listen, if you've seen me before, I literally have a cat on camera right now. I love cats. I'm so obsessed with them. They've always been like a huge part of my life. So for me, the cat doll also is like a theme, if that makes sense. I know that for everybody, that would definitely not be the case. Like, for a lot of people, you would consider that just a casual Barbie. But for me, that's a theme. And I actually do have a bunch more dolls that I would like to get from Barbie just because they have cats. And I think maybe that's like sort of the crux of it is the motivation to getting the doll is less the doll and more about the cat theming. So that's why I think I feel okay qualifying that as also a themed doll. So basically, I almost exclusively buy themed Barbies and not everyday Barbies. And I think honestly that's sort of the crux of it is something about sort of everyday, more casual Barbies or even Barbies that are in like fancy dress but aren't particularly themed to anything. I just have a really, really hard time connecting with them. Like, I don't know what it is. I just don't find them as fun. I really do love Barbie in a certain way. I have a lot of nostalgia for Barbie, and I really do love when she makes incredible themed dolls. Like, again, the Dolls that Were Princess collection, I talk about that collection constantly. I have so many of those dolls. I love it. I think it's incredible. So I still like am capable of loving something from Barbie, but I love that line. I don't love Barbie as a whole. I love when Barbie makes actually good like fairies and mermaids because I love that fantastical aspect. But it still can't translate to me loving Barbie as a whole. And I think that's sort of an interesting phenomenon. Barbie is definitely not the only brand who has these sort of like different categories. She might be the most prolific just because Barbie makes a lot of dolls and has been around for a while. So there's a huge back catalog of dolls. And so it kind of makes sense that Barbie has been almost everything, like a newer brand might not have had time to get into fairies and mermaids yet, but like Barbie has absolutely had time. There's a Barbie for every occasion. And yet I'm still so selective. I still don't feel connected to Barbie as a brand. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of the issue. Monster High, regardless of the different themes that they give the dolls, whether they're at a music festival or in their everyday clothes or at a dance or whatever Monster High is doing, they're still monsters. There is still that underlying theme that gives me something to latch onto and gives me like something to enjoy about them. Very similar with Ever After High. Like those dolls, they're literally going to a high school. Most of their dolls are in some form of just everyday dress, but it's the concept of Ever After High that makes me interested in them. And it also allows them to be a little bit more dramatic. I will admit that. Like, it's not quite the same everyday style as we might see from something like Barbie. Ever After High's everyday style is still quite ostentatious. So maybe that's part of it too. Maybe I just prefer the everyday style that has a touch of the whimsy. But for whatever reason, whether it's just the insane diversity that leads to a sort of lack of cohesion amongst Barbies, or if it's just that like I really need some sort of interesting fantastical element, I feel like I just can't make myself care about most Barbie releases. And that's then where you add on the element of they're so expensive and the quality is going so far down, in my opinion, that it makes it even harder because it's not only, okay, yeah, these are everyday fashions that I don't necessarily feel the most connected to on dolls that are sort of just, they're just dolls to me, but also most of the time they're not great quality. And that certainly doesn't help. And that brings up another element where I was like, oh, yeah, they're just dolls. They don't have names a lot of the time. Like a lot of Barbie lines are just numbered. The fashionistas are just numbered. The deluxe style line, of which I have two of the dolls, are just numbered. Like those dolls don't have names. They don't have characters for me to latch onto. They don't have characters for me to care about. They're just dolls. A lot of people end up referring to dolls by their face sculpt name because Barbie doesn't name her doll. And so that's like an easier way to be able to sort of talk about these dolls because it's not like, oh, here's my Draculaura, here's my Frankie, Barbie, 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 Barbie. You know what I'm saying? Like there's maybe less identity with Barbie. And I'm not inherently saying that that is a bad thing. Just because Barbie doesn't have like this big overarching theme like Monster High does, doesn't mean that she's unappealing. And in some ways, that could be considered a good business tactic because that means that if you have a kid who really only cares about mermaids, Barbie's got them covered. And if they really only care about fairies, Barbie's also got them covered. And if they only care about dolls and gowns, guess what? There are plenty of Barbies in gowns. If they're the opposite and they only want dolls that are wearing jeans and like very casual clothes, again, Barbie has got that base covered. So it's not that I'm saying that that is an inherent flaw towards Barbie or that it isn't smart or that it doesn't like serve the customer base.
Quick and extremely clunky editing interjection to add that the lack of a solid identity for Barbie does allow the individual consumer to sort of like create their own characters for her, which I'm sure is a huge draw for a lot of people, just not for me.
But I am saying that I think it alienates me a little bit because I'm only drawn to these very specific things. And then when we get a Barbie in like a t shirt, I just don't care because it's just another Barbie with brown hair and a t-shirt. And I understand the face sculpts can be really gorgeous. I'm not trying to take that away from people who design them because like Barbie really truly does come out with some amazing faces. But for me personally, an amazing face just isn't enough for me to care about a doll. There has to be something else there. There needs to be some other substance. And for me as a collector, just having a semi cute, like, but pretty regular outfit on isn't enough to give me that substance. Funnily enough, something similar I think could be, again, for me specifically, be said about LOL OMG. For them, for me, the quality is like kind of going downhill and I'm getting less excited. But throughout the course of this channel, if you've seen me for a long time, you'll know that when I've talked about LOL OMG, I so consistently cannot figure out their names because they're named things like Dazzle and I literally can't even think of a single one of their names. I'm trying to stare and be like, Hoops Cutie. Hoops Cutie is a name. And so because they're just these words, it like just goes through my head. I do think with LOLOMG, because the fashions are more intricate than Barbie, I tend to get a little bit more of the personality of the character, even if I can't remember their name. And so I feel like a little bit more excited about that. But there is still that disconnect for me where I just can't feel like I'm seeing them as a whole character. And even with Rainbow High now that we've moved into the reboot era and we're going so far from what the original premise was, when we used to get new series of Rainbow High, I would be so excited to know what their different focuses were and how that would reflect in their fashions. Someone who's more sound focused, I might expect to come with sound like accessories, or maybe they'd have like musical motifs in their clothing. And someone who's more into visual arts, I would expect then for that to be reflected somehow in their style and in the accessories that they come with. Like it felt cool to get to learn a little bit about these characters. But now, first off, we're just getting a lot of the same characters, which I don't inherently hate. But then when we do get new characters, it feels like they aren't fleshed out. Like they're new characters just because. I don't really have a reason. Like I can't figure why they have to be new characters other than it just is easier than trying to write an old character into that place, but they don't feel exciting, they don't feel fleshed out, they don't feel like something that I can really sink my teeth into and connect to. I feel like I've said that 1,000 times already in this video, but it's just interesting to see that that apparently is a pattern that I'm just now noticing in my own collecting habits, is that it's a little bit harder for me to feel drawn towards dolls that don't feel like they themselves are fleshed out. And even amongst the other examples I've given, I still think that Barbie is definitely the worst offender because it does unfortunately cycle back to the quality aspect. LOL OMG, at least like at the absolute height, like talking best of the best LOL OMG, they might not have names that I can understand. They might have a show or movies or whatever that I don't care at all about, but I can look at the doll and be like, wow, that is a very cohesive character with really unique and detailed fashion, and that's a doll that I want to have. Whereas anymore with Barbie, like that definitely could have been true at some point in the past for Barbie, but anymore now, I most of the time don't even bother going down the Barbie aisle when I go to the store because it's just like a sea of nothingness to me. Like I don't want to say like nothing good about Barbie, Like they do have diversity in the sense that they have so many different types of people represented in their line and I think that is beautiful. However, because none of them feel like characters to me, none of them feel substantial to me, it's just a wall of pink. Like at the end of the day, I do want to applaud the diversity and I'm not trying to say that like it doesn't count because there aren't names attached to it. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. Just for me as a collector, I have to like focus to actually see what Barbie has to offer because it just all blends together and it just doesn't stand out in any capacity to me because it's not as though in lieu of characters they have these really really exciting and unique and interesting fashions. They ultimately have pretty basic fashions on the good end to just molded on clothing on the bad end. And they're just at that point dolls to me. And I know that might sound silly. This is all just dolls, but I can feel something different when I look at G3 Twyla. I feel seen by G3 Twyla. I feel a connection to her. Like I feel more when I look at G3 Twyla. Or again, to go back to Ever After High, when I look at my Maddie Hatter doll, it makes me smile. Like I just remember her character in the show and like how eccentric she was and how fun she was and how she always lit up the room. And she also has such a fun, quirky, silly design. And so that doll makes me smile every single time that I get to see her. Whereas the Barbies that I have, because they're carefully curated, also have that for me. It doesn't feel like it's something that's present with every Barbie. And obviously, that's not to say that it's present with every Monster High doll or every Ever After High doll. But I feel like there's just always something there, like a soul to the brand, that it honestly kind of feels like Barbie is missing to me. And I don't know if that's just because I'm out of touch or what's going on. Again, I feel like I keep needing to disclaim this isn't necessarily a critique on Barbie so much as it is an analysis of how I consume her content. But Barbie just feels like a doll to me. There are moments where I can forget that Monster High is just a doll brand. Obviously, like there's, merch and media, but like they're just a doll brand. Ever After High is just a doll brand. But there are moments where I can forget that and where it can feel like their world is like so close and so tangible that you could almost reach out and become a part of it. And even when it comes to like early Rainbow High, again, they fleshed out the characters. They had really, really beautiful, detailed clothing and it felt a little more real. It felt a little more like a universe that just so happened to be represented in dolls, whereas Barbie just feels like dolls. Even with the Barbie movie, like the literal seeing Barbie land in 3D on camera, it didn't last. That like impression didn't hold for me, didn't stick for me and it still just feels like dolls. When I think about how I felt about Barbie when I was younger, and I think about even the movie dolls that I have now and just like the Barbie movies in general, that feels tangible and real and fun and interesting. But like, I know Barbie is still making movies. I just don't care. Like, whatever they are doing is just different. And maybe that is purely just the nostalgia. Maybe I'm just getting old. And so the new stuff is like less exciting for me but something about the magic just feels gone. It feels like there was a certain era of Barbie movies that like they weren't connected, right? Like they weren't all parts of the same cinematic universe necessarily, but they felt like a cinematic universe. They felt like these Barbies all go together and they all make sense together in some way in my head, even though their stories don't intermingle, but they all feel like they belong. They all feel like Barbie movies and they feel like Barbie as a brand. But I kind of like something about it nowadays, I don't know, I really truly it just feels like there's like a soul is the best way I can put it. It feels like Barbie sort of just doesn't have as much soul anymore. And like she's a big name brand, so they'll make reproductions sometimes, or they'll make inspiration dolls sometimes that are referencing older dolls, and they'll make their playline dolls that just really don't excite me. And none of that feels like the brand has a soul. It just feels like that's what they're supposed to do. Sometimes we do get hits, like the second tribute to fashion doll is not that old. Like I got that doll relatively recently, and that was a relatively recent release from Barbie. And I love that doll. I think she's gorgeous. But anymore, I think it feels more common for Barbies to just be dolls that my eyes glass over looking at than it does for them to be these standout, like little pieces of art that make me feel things. So I'm not writing off Barbie entirely. It's not like I hate Barbie or anything like that. I just, at this point in my collecting, like lifespan, is that a good way to put that? I don't know. At this point in my collecting journey, I just feel like older Barbies still feel like something to me. And every once in a while, Barbie will come out with a release that gives me a glimmer of that same feeling. To circle right back to the deluxe style dolls, those were the first dolls in a while that felt like they were really embracing Barbie core and embracing what I think of when I think of Barbie, where they're just head to toe pink and really just fun and interesting. The fashions were not like the most insane, but compared to what else we had been getting from Barbie, I really, really liked them, and I love that they were all in pink, and they felt like just a little tiny bit of what I was looking for, and so I really was hopeful that that would continue. And not all of the subsequent deluxe style dolls have been terrible, but I think just everything else, like I was like, maybe this will be a turning point for Barbie, and that didn't really happen for her. And so now I just feel even less. So I will still be following Barbie, still paying attention to Barbie. And if I see one that breaks the mold and actually stands out, I'm still open to buying her. It's not like I have a ban on Barbies in this house now. But I do just think it's interesting to sort of sit down and really analyze why it is that I have such a hard time connecting to Barbie. So to close out the video, I would just like to say, as a little teaser, that I am fully aware there's one brand that has been conspicuously absent from this video, which would be Bratz, that you could also argue is very similar to Barbie. They've covered a lot of different ground when it comes to themes. So, like, they might not necessarily have the most, like, solid core, again, in the same way that Monster High is always monsters. Bratz can be so many different things, much like Barbie can be so many different things. The vast majority of their releases are some sort of just everyday doll as opposed to a theme, which I just spent this whole video establishing that I tend to like Barbie more when they have themes. So why is it that I don't feel the way that I feel? That sentence got away from me very quickly. Wow. Why is it that I feel iffy about Barbie for those reasons, but for some reason I love Bratz so much, and I am very much in my Bratz era, and I think about them constantly, and I want so many Bratz dolls. There is a reason, but that's going to be a topic that we will address in another video. So stick around for that. But yeah, I just thought it would be interesting to talk about my thoughts on Barbie. And like, this is just something that I've been thinking about in my own head for a little bit. And I thought it would be fun to share with you all, just kind of get my musings out there. If you feel similarly, I would love to hear. Or if you like have other similar little realizations that you've come to about other brands, I'm also very curious to hear that. I don't know. I just think it's, as someone who does like analytics and stuff, I think it can be really fun to think about why we think certain things and why we feel certain ways. So if you'd like to share any of that, please do feel free. But that's going to be it for me for today, guys. I hope this was interesting for you. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, your night, whatever it might be, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.